I'm not a um, urban social researcher. I understand some basics when it comes to Black consciousness. I know that some of it is very true, and I know that some of it is just to be different. And I know that things that need to be reformed get swept under the carpet by the power structure in the name of things like criminology. I know that there's stereotypes, and there's a lot of things worthy of study. One thing I do understand, because I'm deaf and often cannot tell what's going on, is when people are basically getting along with each other. And it's interesting to me that there's an overlap between the fact that most Black and white people get along with each other just fine all the time, every day, and the narratives that don't get along with each other that spin through um, the media. Now, because I do actually have some background in the Kennedy assassination, I know that um, whenever there's a need to explain away something, they make up a story about the mafia being involved. Well, that doesn't leave me with a very good impression of mafia stories. There was organized crime in Italy that was used to advantage among American patriots during World War II. And unions have had problems with organized crime. So I know from um, historic journalist articles that people, I mean, there's gun violence all over the United States. In other words, when I say there's um, reason to make a tape about the African mafia in America, it's not because I believe there is an African mafia in America. It's not because I believe that there isn't an African mafia in America. It's because I think it's a reasonable idea to get started to explore so that there's an effort to keep people honest about it, meaning critical race theory should address the idea, from both sides. There's some truth to the fact that there's corruption in Africa, for example. I have articles about efforts to come to terms with corruption in Africa. It's not a fantasy that there's corruption in Africa, but there's also efforts to come to terms with it. And those efforts to come to terms with it can be, in turn, corrupted by people who don't believe they're sincere, which is obviously heartbreaking for the people who are struggling. And there's sincerity behind the idea that climate victims on the front lines of Africa are the people who least contribute to the problem. I do believe that. But I also know that the chains of command in urban um, effrontery, the people who protest and riot and connive and call themselves street scholars and make buses into Hollywood drama clubs, are people who have concocted an ideological swindle with the help of New York, masquerading as compassionate when they're just selling a program. Now, whether or not there's an African mafia involved, there does seem to be African organized crime involved. And I'm in no way in a position to deal with that. No way. Um, I'm in a position to do my level best not to be dissuaded from uh, presenting what I know and believe and what I question, and here I'll answers as time permits. Um, but the gross insincerity towards me has made me very reluctant to provide any time to these um, presentation artists. So it's a mistake to believe when I say that there's violent organized crime that I'm talking about some black African mafia. There are black people involved, but it's organized by a crowd you would expect to come out of South Africa. A conniving, fascist, biracial group who have no business bullying the United States of America. Yes, we need to cut back on fossil fuels. Yes. Yes, we need to do our level best to find ways to provide funding for sustainable development goals all over the world. Yes, we need to do those things. There's no question in my mind whatsoever that we need to be doing those things and should have been doing those things all along. What I'm talking about is a movement of bullies who have made a pact of convenience between that crosses all ethnic groups. They call themselves the Green Party, who themselves, for decades, personally, have obstructed every rational, reasonable effort to reform our society to address the goals that they claim to be championing. That I know for a fact. I don't need anybody to tell me that I don't know that for a fact because I have substantive proof and experience of the matter. But I'd be very careful to call it an African mafia because making things out to be mafia or organized crime often is just a convenience. It looks to me, to be perfectly honest, to be administrative. Administrative. I believe it's coming from the money bags in the aristocracy of talent who have put on their spinner beanies and found out a way to manipulate the rest of us with images. Hollywood has always been a hot wiring machine. Its origins are the origins of fascism, and the experts of cinema and fascist Italy were also fantastic counterfeiters of money to increase their influences in areas that were multi-layered sovereignty. Multi-layered sovereignty meant that, Fiume was Croatian, Habsburg was involved, and they were all uh, manipulating the money supply with a little bit of counterfeiting. And this is where cinema comes from. We have allowed a hot wiring machine to turn the government of America into a subsidiary of Axis Hollywood, simply for no other reason that they represent a little of each of every one of us. That's wrong. We have a whole society to look after. So I would be careful of reflexively saying that the drama school that the bullies put on public buses and public sidewalks is so much a mafia as it is an entertainment lobby, trying to get the upper hand in um, the double speak of reform movements.